Greetings, M squared here. Today we are going to start an introduction to geometry, and then we're going to use some of the stuff we learned tomorrow to solve equations. But for today, it's going to be some vocabulary. You want to take notes. You want to make sure you know where to find these definitions so that when you get to the homework, you know what to do, because that's going to be super important. So we got a few definitions. Definitions are bolded and they're underlined. The vocabulary, and then we got some definitions. So our learning goal is that you will take all this information and be able to name angles correctly. So we got to learn about some different kinds of angles. The first thing that we have to learn about is what is a point. You've been graphing points for a long time, but what is a point? The definition of a point is just a location on the coordinate plane. Simply a location. It doesn't really have any width or any kind of thickness to it. It's simply a location, and you always use capital letters to represent points. So if I'm talking about a point, that says point A. And in a diagram, say I have a circle and I call it A, B, C. Those are capital letters and they represent the points, those vertices. We'll learn about that later, of that triangle. But capital letters, it's super important. In geometry, lowercase letters and capital letters mean totally different things. So we want to make sure you understand when it's appropriate to use capital letters, and points, you always have to use capital letters. Super, super important. A line is a set of points. So that means anytime you talk about any part of any place on this line, any location on that line, it's a point. It needs to have a dot on it. I like to put the dots on it. You won't always see them, like on a triangle, you're not going to see a dot, but you need capital letters. And the way we symbolize a line, so mathematicians don't want to write line XY every time. We write a line over it. Notice it has two arrows, and then we use two capital letters, and it can be any points on that line. If there were more points on this, like if there were Z and B, you could still call it line XY, or you could call it line XZ or line XB. Any two capital letters from that line can be used for a symbol when you're talking about that line. Okay, so it's a set of points that extends forever in opposite directions. And when we talk about a line, we're talking about a straight line. A lot of people when they say a line, they think about a curved line. No, in geometry, when we say a line, we're talking about a straight line that goes forever in opposite directions. A ray is a part of a line that goes forever in one direction. So it has one end point, a starting point, and then it goes forever in one direction. So it's kind of like part of a line. So it's made up of a bunch of little points. Notice that when I use two capital letters here, only one arrow is present here, and the end point doesn't have one. So it's important. You couldn't say ray BA because it doesn't go forever that way. So it's really important that you always start with the end point and that the arrow follows in the direction that it goes. An angle then is it's formed when you have two rays that get together that share the same endpoint. We call those rays sides of the angle, and we call the endpoint that's in common a vertex. Notice the capital letters because they're representing points, and this is how I write angle CAT. And I would say it like that, CAT. Or I could also have said angle TAC. What's the same about these two? The A is in the middle. The A represents the vertex. That is super, super important. You have to remember that. There's not any other way you could write this using three capital letters. If you wanted to use one letter and there weren't any other angles coming off of it, you could have also said angle A. And sometimes people use numbers, and then you could have said angle 1. But you never use lowercase letters because these capital letters are telling you the points that make up the angle and the order in which it is. So the angle represents this guy right here. Sometimes we'll write that to show that it's an angle, and we'll get into some specific kinds of angles now. Hold on. Upside down. Well, let's turn it around. Sorry about that. Okay, right angle. You probably know what a right angle is. It's an angle that measures 90 degrees. What is 90 degrees? Well, we show a right angle by a little box there, but that's a 90-degree angle. A straight angle measures 180 degrees. That's 180 degrees. If you ever heard someone say, oh, I did a 180 when I was slipping on the ice, that means they were going in one direction, they turned around and went in the other direction. So 180 makes a line. 360 is all the way around. Complementary angles, two angles that add up to 90 degrees. Two angles, super important, not three angles, two angles, not one angle. A right angle is not are not complementary angles because it's just one of them. Complementary angles, two angles that add up to 90. Supplementary angles, two angles that add up to 180. Now, you're going to have to remember that. How do you remember it? This is how I remember it. 90 comes before 180. Complementary comes before supplementary in the dictionary. On the number line in the dictionary. So that's how I remember it. You got to remember it. Vertical angles are formed by two intersecting lines, and they're the opposite angles. Oh, I forgot to give you a picture of this. I better give you a picture of this. So let's say I had a right angle, then angle 1 and angle 2. Angle 1 plus angle 2 would equal 90. If I had a straight line and I had two angles, angle 3 and angle 4, then angle 3 plus angle 4 would equal 180. Right? Now I've got vertical angles. Vertical angles are always equal. They're angles that are formed by intersecting lines. There's another set of vertical angles. Let's call those 3 and 4. Well, if vertical angles are always equal, then angle 1 plus angle 2 equals, let's try that again. Angle 1 equals angle 2, and angle 3 would equal angle 4. This will be important later, so you got to know those. These three are especially going to be important. These four, especially important for your homework. Adjacent angles are angles that share a side and an endpoint. So let's draw an angle. If I wanted to share a side and an endpoint, then I would share, let's say I'm going to share this side. I'll highlight it. Then I would have to have another side. And here I'm sharing an endpoint. So this is my angle 1. And this is my angle 2, and those are adjacent angles because they share a side. So let's practice that a little bit. Okay, so here's a picture. Hopefully you can see it. Hopefully you see a bunch of capital letters. Notice they're all capital letters. And then you see a bunch of little numbers. Hopefully you can read that. I'll help you out if you can't. So we're going to answer these questions. Which angle number represents angle C and K? First we got to find C. There's C. Next we got to find N. There's N. Then we got to find K. So I'm going to use an orange highlighter for this one. I found C. I found N. I found K. Notice I went in that order. Which numbered angle represents C and K? Well, it's this one right here, and that number is 14. So the correct answer to this is 14. This is what you're going to be doing in your homework. Okay, let's use a different highlighter. Now it says which angle number is vertical to angle LKJ. So I've got to find L and K and J. So this is angle LKJ, but it asks for the vertical. Vertical means opposite when two lines are intersecting, so it's going to be that one right there, angle 11. All right. Which angle number is supplementary to angle AED? Sorry, get my pink one out. AED. So I got to find A, and then E, and then D. So it's this angle right here, and it's asking me which one's supplementary to it. Means which one, if I added that to it, would make that straight line. And you can kind of see this straight line right here, this angle right here. And so 4 is what they gave us. 5 would be supplementary to it because those two are going to add up. So that would be angle 5. And then which angle number is adjacent to angle EHG? So EH, where's my G? G. Okay, so it's talking about this angle right here, EHG. That's angle 7. It says which one is adjacent to it. Adjacent means they share a side. So there's 2 of them, but there's only one with a number. This one over here, which they don't number, and then this one over here. So we're going to choose 8 because it's the only one that was numbered. Alrighty, well, we're going to kick it up a step. Here we go. If angle IEF, so let's find IEF, IEF, Okay, so that's IEF, that's this one right here. If that one's 96 degrees, then what is angle CEH? CEH, they want this one right here. Well, what do we notice about those two angles? They share a side, so they're adjacent. They also make 180 degrees because the two sides that they don't share are opposite rays, so that's 180 degrees. So we have to figure out, we know that one angle is 96 plus the other one that I don't know what it is, but I know that together they equal 180. So what would that be? Well, 4 would get me to 100 and 80 would get me to 180. So our x must be 84. So 84 degrees. We're going to put a little degree sign there. Oh, I forgot to tell you, this little m, you might have wondered, what does that mean? Whenever you are talking about an angle being a certain number of degrees, then you want to use the measure of. That means the measure of IEF is talking about degrees. Notice I didn't put degrees here and here. Usually when you solve an equation, you don't. So it would have been better if I said the measure of angle CEH. And you'll get picky. They'll get picky with you when you get to geometry class, but I won't be picky with you on that. But just so you know what that little m is. Okay, let's look at m. Measure of angle ACB. So we got to find ACB. ACB, that's this one right here, right? ACB is 105. So let's mark that. It's 105 degrees. And then it says, what is the measure of angle NCE? So NCE. NCE. Well, this one right here. Well, what kind of angles are those? Well, two lines are intersecting and they're opposite each other. So those are vertical angles, and vertical angles are always equal. We just learned that. So that means it would have to be 105 degrees. So that is what you're going to be doing in your homework for the angle part. Next week we'll kind of kick it up a notch where you're actually going to solve equations, but you'll still need to know those definitions. So make sure you take good notes and keep them this week and next week. You will need them. Good luck. M squared signing out.